Okay, today we're going to be testing out the Winmax Mill desktop software. We're going to be going through a few different features, seeing how to explore each of the different features and how to best harness the software. So we're going to start out. We've launched the program. Now we're going to start out. We have the. First thing we'll do is we'll explain this bar up here. If you hover over each of the icons, it will pop up with a description of each of them. So the first one is our program manager. That's identified by the filing cabinet. Then we have the input screen. That is the hammer and chisel or screwdriver icon. Then we have our tool setup. Then we have our tool review. This is a tool and material database. You can enable and disable that depending on which functions you have installed. Currently, with the way we're going to go through this course and the way we're going to program these parts, I'm going to leave that disabled. Then we have our part setup, and we have our part programming, and then our program review. This is our draw screen or graphics. We have a DXF importer. We may get into that later. Basically, we can draw something in CAD and import it and use those features to draw and create our geometry for us. Then these are our testing modes where we can actually test out how fast our program will run. We won't really bother with that too much, but it can be handy when you're trying to test out how fast a program will run and you're trying to optimize for production purposes. We have our utility screen and our help button. So we'll go through the main ones we'll be using. So this is our program manager. So if we want to create a new program, we'll go to here. We'll click on that and it'll pull up this screen. Since Winmax runs basically on a Windows platform, a lot of the features will be fairly similar to what you're used to with a normal Windows program. So if we click on this new button, we can create a new program. It'll give us this option. So we can have a conversational program, an NC program. There's also a job list. The job list is a little bit different. It's kind of an added feature. We won't really worry about that too much. The two main things we'll be doing is conversational program and NC program. The main thing we're going to focus on in this course is the conversational programming. So we'll go ahead and create a conversational program. And so there's already one in there, but we'll go ahead and create a new one. And so now we have this no name 2, and you can know it's a conversational program by the file heading. It is an HWM. If we created a NC program, it would create a FNC, and we can change that file extension if we want to just an NC. Some use an HNC. It just depends on what machine you're going to be running it on. So we'll go ahead and go with this no name 2 and go ahead and continue with this program. So now we have our program pulled up. We'll go ahead and create our tools. So if we go to this tools setup page, it'll pop in. Since we have no tools currently in the program, it'll start with number 1. So if we want to create a tool, we'll just say tool 1, and we can pick our tool type. We'll call it a drill. So we can change our numbers here at the top. We can also change the type of tool here. And so we can have a drop-down menu with all of our tools, or also on the sidebar, it has each of those same options. If we click the More tab, it'll just take us through all those different options. And so you can see all the different types of tools it has. We'll just go with the drill for now. And we can specify our diameter here in the diameter field. Now for our zero calibration, it's not critical when you're programming on the computer console. When you go to run it on the machine, you'll have to set your zero before you can run your program, or your program will error out and tell you that your zeros are not set. So make sure you zero the program before you zero your tool before you run your program. Then these fields here, we have speeds, coolant, surface footage, RPM, your number of flutes, plunge feeds. And the way the software works is basically whatever speeds and feeds you put in here, it'll auto-calculate your other features. So say we have a 2-fluted drill, we know our surface footage is going to be 150, and we know our feed per rev is going to be 1 thou, it'll auto-calculate all this information for us. So throw our speed in here by calculating our diameter with our surface feed, and it'll calculate our plunge feed based on our feed per revolution. So basically eliminates any necessity to use your calculations with your manual formulas. So basically whatever we put in here, it's going to auto-calculate based on our standard formulas that you're used to. So now that we have this in here, we can go ahead and go to our part setup next. So in this screen, we can actually touch our zeros off with our X and Y coordinates and our Z coordinates. Basically, you only do these on the machine. You can't really do it in the software. We can type whatever we want in here, but it won't affect any of our actual geometry until we go to our machine and actually run this program. If we go to the More tab, we have this option for stock geometry. And basically what that is it will define a shape for us. So if we're using a 5" by 5" square piece of stock, we can predefine that. So if we go to stock geometry, if we don't enter anything in here, it will basically just auto-generate whatever fits with our features we determined to machine. If we create our own stock, it will create that same shape that we want. So if we do a 5 by 5, 1" thick, and we go and draw it, it'll show up as 5 by 5, 1" thick. So there's our stock. Now, it's not going to draw anything since we haven't programmed our actual features yet, but it will show our stock. So there's our stock. So now we're going to go to the part programming part, and if we click on the little pencil and paper, it'll take us to this. Since we have no blocks in here currently, it'll automatically take us to a new block. So since we have a drill set up as our tool, we'll go ahead and do a hole block. So when we go to the part programming, we have these options. We have position, which is basically a machine movement, typically for your part changeovers and in the program, where you're going to pull out your part or inspect your part. You'll set an XY coordinate and have your part move to a position. And then you have your holes, which is any feature in the Z direction. And then your milling is any X and Y movements with a tool. And your patterns, which we'll use to create complicated geometry across multiple patterns. Miscellaneous is basically various tweaks to the program we can apply later on. That's a more complicated feature. We'll get into that later in the actual class. And then we also have an NC program call. So if you have a specified NC program you want to pull up, you can actually do that if needed. So we'll go ahead and do holes since we have a drill programmed, and do a drill operation and drill. And so now we'll just specify our depths. With the Z start, basically the way that works is everything before that point is a rapid movement. Once it hits that motion, it'll then turn into a feed. So you always want to have some sort of Z positive number here that allows for extra cushion so that you do not crash into your part. And we'll add tool 10 in here, or tool 1. When you type in tool 1, you'll see it ask you if you want to add the speeds and feeds you have defined. Now we can go to the next hole operation and define our locations. So we'll do this at 2.5 and 2.5. Now I'll put a hole at the center of our part. So now we draw it, we should get a hole right in the middle of our part. So you can see our hole is halfway through our part, and it is right in the center. So the way I draw this is by going to our graphics features. So that is this little block with our milling Mill in it. Click on that. If we go to the Draw Options, Draw, it'll actually draw our graphics for us. So in the Draw page, you have all different types of options. So this is the standard view you have. When you first draw, you'll have it in the XY plane. Now if we want to change our plane, we can actually go to Select View, and we have an option of XY, XZ, and YZ for our standard planes. And we also have a view of isometric. So if we want to rotate this around, we want to be in isometric. So once we hit isometric, you can see it's moved off. Once we're in the isometric, we can actually go to this Rotate tab and rotate this around. So we can actually see from any direction what's going on. There's also these options to rotate up and down if you want to do small variations. Or you can also just click and hold, and it'll rotate around. If you right click and hold, it will zoom. If you left click and hold, it will rotate. And you can fit to view if you need to. In this draw screen, you also have the option for a DB search, which is a database search. So if we have a bunch of features and we want to search our program based on those features to see which block it is, we can actually click this DB search and select our feature. See how it highlights it? And hit jump to block, and actually pops right to the block. We only have one block, so it's already going to be pulling up here on the left. But if we had multiple blocks, it would actually change to the block we were selecting. We also have the option to zoom, so if we want to select a feature and zoom in on it, we can do that. We can fit to view. We can also pan over. If we have a very large part, we want to pan to see our different features. We can also take a snapshot, and what that does is if we go back to our program manager, it saves whatever view you're on as an icon for your program. The last thing we'll do is we'll save this out. So if we go to Save As, we get a standard Windows Explorer here. We can pick wherever we want to save. So I'm just going to save this here and just do test. And we can change our different file type, but we're just going to leave it on the HWM. The HD3 is an older file type for older machines, but for now, everything we're going to be doing is HWM. So save it, and now you can see our program has changed here, and we're good to go. We also have this utility screen. This is where some of our configuration files are. You shouldn't have to mess with this too much. If you're getting errors and having problems drawing things, and you want to change how the way the software performs, you can tweak stuff in here. Most of the stuff you don't want to mess with, but you can play around and see how things work and change stuff however you need to. We'll get into that more as we go through the class, how we're going to set stuff up to make it easier to run on the machines. And that should be it. This has been an introduction to the Winmax desktop software. If you have any more questions, please post them on the YouTube video. Thank you very much.